Hello, everyone, in the scripture class from Our Lady of Loreto Parish in East Providence, as well as from the St. Joseph's Generations of Faith class in Pasco, Rhode Island. It's me, Tim Reed, and I'm here to introduce you to our class on Genesis. This screencast is going to take you through another creation story like there is in Genesis, except this creation story comes from a much older time than the book of Genesis. This story, as it says over here, is called the Enuma Elish. It is a creation story from ancient Babylon. And I'd like you to listen to this clip of this ancient creation story to then later look at some similarities between it and our creation story, but also to look at some important differences. Here we go.
We first need to consider a Babylonian epic, an epic that is known by its opening words, Enuma Elish, which means when on high, the opening words of this epic. And the epic opens before the formation of heaven and earth. Nothing existed except water. And water existed in two forms. There's the primeval freshwater ocean, which is identified with a male divine principle, a male god, Apsu. You have a primeval saltwater ocean, which is identified with a female divine principle, Tiamat. Tiamat appears as this watery ocean, but also as a very fierce dragon-like monster. It begins, when on high the heaven had not been named, firm ground below had not been called by name, naught but primordial Apsu, their begetter, and Mumu Tiamat, she who bore them all, their waters commingling as a single body. No reed hut had been matted, no marshland had appeared, when no gods whatever had been brought into being. Uncalled by name, their destinies undetermined, then it was that the gods were formed within them. So there's some sort of commingling or union of this male and female divine, these male and female divine principles, a sexual union of Apsu and Tiamat that begins a process of generation. And it produces first demons and monsters. Eventually, gods will begin to emerge. Now, in time, Tiamat and Apsu are disturbed by the din and the tumult of these younger gods. The divine brothers banded together. They disturbed Tiamat as they surged back and forth. Yea, they troubled the mood of Tiamat by their hilarity in the abode of heaven. Apsu, opening his mouth, said unto resplendent Tiamat, their ways are verily loathsome unto me. By day I find no relief, nor repose by night. I will destroy, I will wreck their ways, that quiet may be restored. Let us have rest. Then answered Mumu Tiamat, giving counsel to Apsu. Ill-wishing and ungracious was Mumu's advice. Do destroy, my father, the mutinous ways, then shalt thou have relief by day and rest by night. When Apsu heard this, his face grew radiant because of the evil he planned against the gods, his sons. So he decides to destroy the gods. Now, he is thwarted by a water god named Ea, an earth water god, sorry, he's the combination, earth water god named Ea. And Apsu is killed. Tiamat now is enraged, and she's bent on revenge. She makes plans to attack all of the gods with her assembled forces. The gods are terrified, and they need a leader to lead them against her army. And they turn to Marduk. Marduk agrees to lead them in battle against Tiamat and her assembled forces. Her forces are under the, generalship of Kingu. And he agrees to lead them against Tiamat and Kingu on condition that he be granted sovereignty, right? And he sets terms. His heart exulting, he said, Creator of the gods, destiny of the great gods, if indeed I, as your avenger, am to vanquish Tiamat and save your lives, and set up the assembly, proclaim supreme my destiny. Let my word, instead of you, determine the fates. Unalterable shall be what I may bring into being. Neither recalled nor changed shall be the command of my lips. And the agreement is struck. And Marduk fells Tiamat in battle. It's a fierce battle, and there is, in fact, a memorable passage that details her demise. In fury, Tiamat cried out allied. To the roots her legs shook both together. And then joined issue, Tiamat and Marduk. They strove in single combat, locked in battle. The Lord Marduk spread out his net to enfold her. The evil wind which followed behind he let loose in her face. When Tiamat opened her mouth to consume him, He drove in the evil wind, that she closed not her lips. And as the fierce winds charged her belly, her body was distended and her mouth was wide open. He released the arrow. It tore her belly. It cut through her inside, splitting the heart. Having thus subdued her, he extinguished her life. He cast down her carcass to stand upon it. Well, what do you do with the carcass of a ferocious monster? You build a world. And that's what Marduk did. He takes the carcass, he slices it into two halves, rather like a clamshell, and out of the top half, he creates the firmament, the heaven. With the other half, he creates the land, the earth. He split her like a shellfish into two parts. Half of her he set up and sealed as a sky, pulled down the bar, and posted guards. He bade them to allow not her waters to escape. Right? So he has used her body to press back her waters, and that's what the ceiling is, the firmament, a firm sheet or structure that's holding back waters. When little holes come along, that's rain coming through. And the bottom part is the land, which is pressing down waters below. They come up every now and then in springs and rivers and seas and lakes and things. That is the created world. But he doesn't stop there, and he creates various heavenly bodies at this point. He constructed stations for the great gods. The heavenly bodies are understood as stations for the great gods, fixing their astral likenesses as constellations. He determined the year by designating the zones. He set up 3 constellations for each of the 12 months. The moon he caused to shine, the night to him and trusting. And then the complaints begin to roll in. The gods are very unhappy because they have now been assigned specific duties in the maintenance of the cosmos. You know, the moon god has to come up at night and hang around for a while and go back down, and the sun has to trundle across the sky. And they're pretty unhappy about this, and they want relief from working and laboring at their assigned stations. And so Marduk accedes to this demand. He takes blood from the slain general Kingu, the leader of Tiamat's army, the rebels, and he fashions a human being, with the express purpose of freeing the gods from menial labor. Blood I will mass and cause bones to be. I will establish a savage. Man shall be his name. Verily, savage man I will create. He shall be charged with the service of the gods, that they might be at ease. It was Kingu who contrived the uprising and made Tiamat rebel and joined battle. So they bound him, holding him before Ea, and out of Kingu's blood they fashioned mankind, and Ea imposed the service and let free the gods. So the grateful gods now recognize the sovereignty of Marduk, and they build him a magnificent shrine or temple in Babylon, pronounced Bab-El, which simply means gateway of the god, the gate of the god. Babylon means the city that is the gateway of the god. And a big banquet follows, and Marduk is praised for all that he's accomplished, and his kingship is confirmed. And Enuma Elish ends.
So that is the Enuma Elish. It's an interesting story. We have a cast of characters, including fresh and salt water. Apsu over here and Tiamat. There is a marriage of sorts between the gods of fresh and salt water, and they have a bunch of kids. But then the kids are too noisy for Apsu, and so Apsu wants to destroy them. They get the General Kingu to help them do that. Apsu is killed, and later Tiamat is killed by the warrior god Marduk. So what do we gain from this story? The truths that we gain out of this story are as follows. First, creation in this story happens as a kind of an accident, a byproduct of this cosmic war between the gods. It was not Marduk's intention at first to create a world. His intention was to defeat Tiamat. So that creation is a little more accidental or incidental in this story. Also, anytime you have a story with multiple gods, polytheism, that just changes things dramatically. When there's more than one god, you tend to have a competition of sorts. There's rivalries, and there's all kinds of bad blood between the gods. Also, just the makeup of the universe. The universe itself, it's the dead corpse of one of the gods. Not the most noble way of thinking about the heavens and the earth. One thing you will notice, though, the first thing that is created is light, then the sky, then the oceans are separated from the land, Then he creates the sun, the moon, and the stars and puts them in the sky. And then he creates all the animals and then humans. Humans were made last because the gods didn't want to do all the work in the universe. So Marduk decides to take the clotting blood of one of the dead gods and make humans so that the gods could be at ease. And that's our place in the Babylonian universe. And that's our lot in life. We are slaves to the gods. Now, this story has many elements of what is known as myth, and I've had a lot of problems with people over the years when they talk about myth. They'll say things like, "Oh, well, don't cross your eyes or they'll stay that way." And some people say, "Oh, that's just a myth." That is not a myth. A myth is actually a story that is much bigger than something like "don't cross your eyes or they'll stay that way." It is a story, and normally it's an epic story. It's a long story that contains a spiritual truth or a cultural belief or tradition of a society. Deeply held beliefs, by the way. So when we say that word myth, we just looked at the Babylonian creation myth. When we look at Genesis, when we all get together, we're going to see that this has elements of myth in it, and we don't want to use it in that way that we use it when we talk about things like "don't cross your eyes" or "step on a crack and break your mama's back" and things like that. That is not what we mean by myth. So I look forward to meeting with you all and discussing the creation stories in Genesis and all the other stories of our ancestors of faith. Thanks very much.